Ladies and gentlemen, life is not a stage where you have to broadcast your every scene. It's not a press conference. It's a journey. And if you're not careful, talking too much about the wrong things to the wrong people can destroy what you've spent years building in silence. You see, your words are seeds. And once you throw them out, you can't always control where they land or what they produce. So let's talk today about 5 things you must learn to keep to yourself if you want to stay sharp, stay focused. And yes, avoid getting emotionally, mentally, and spiritually killed in this noisy watching world. Let me tell you something that can save you years of heartache and confusion. Keep your dreams to yourself, at least until they're strong enough to stand on their own. Now, that may sound a little strange in a world that's always shouting, speak your truth or tell everyone what you're going to do. But let me offer a deeper truth. Dreams are like seeds. And seeds don't grow when you dig them up and show them around every few days. They grow when you put them in the soil, keep them watered, protect them from pests, and give them time. You see, there's a season for dreaming, a season for doing, and a season for revealing. And if you mix those up, you end up burying the very thing that was supposed to bring your life meaning. Most people don't realize this, but when you speak your dream too early, especially to someone who doesn't share your vision, you risk inviting opinions, fears, and judgments into a space that was meant for faith, focus, and silence. It's not that people are malicious. It's just that most people can't see what you see. They haven't lived your life. They haven't felt your calling. They don't carry your burden. So when you share your dream and they laugh or they criticize or they doubt, you start to feel unsure. And here's the danger. Doubt is a dream killer. Not because it has power in itself, but because once it's planted inside of you, it competes with your belief. And every dream needs belief like the body needs breath. Without belief, the dream suffocates. Without belief, the vision stalls. Without belief, you stop before you even start. So what should you do? Protect your dream like a newborn child. You don't expose a newborn to the crowd right away. You keep it close. You nurture it. You grow it quietly, not in secret because you're ashamed, but in silence because you're wise. When you first have a dream, whether it's starting a business, writing a book, going back to school, or transforming your life, it's just a spark, and sparks are fragile. You don't need the wind of public opinion blowing on that spark before it becomes a flame. And here's something to remember. People are often more comfortable with the you they've known than the you you're becoming. The moment you start talking about growth, vision, and breaking limits, you might stir up their insecurities. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your courage reminds them of their own complacency. And when that happens, they'll start giving you reasons why it won't work, why you're not ready, why you shouldn't dream so big. That's why your vision doesn't need validation. It needs action. The best way to announce a dream is not through words. It's through consistent, quiet movement. Let them see the book on the shelf. Let them walk into the business after it's open. Let them notice your transformation after the work is done. Let results speak. Because when you show people a finished product, it's hard to argue with it. But if all you have are words, you give them the freedom to poke holes, cast doubt, and pull you off course. So what's the lesson? Be wise. Be strategic. Don't silence your dreams, but don't parade them either. Just because it's in your heart doesn't mean it's ready for public display. Hold it close. Work on it daily. Let it mature. Because when it's time, when the dream has roots and fruit, you won't have to tell the world. The world will see it for itself. There's something powerful about knowing what your next move is and choosing to keep it to yourself. You see, strategy is silent power. It's the kind of power that doesn't draw attention to itself, but changes everything when it's executed. But here's the danger. The more you speak about your next move, the more vulnerable that move becomes. Now, I'm not talking about being secretive or deceptive. I'm talking about being wise. I'm talking about learning the difference between sharing to seek clarity and sharing because you're looking for attention, validation, or approval. Most people don't know how to handle what they haven't earned. So when you start talking about your next goal, your next transition, your next elevation, they don't always respond with understanding. Some will misunderstand it, some will question it, and some, unfortunately, will try to block it. Because here's a sobering truth. Not everyone who hears your strategy wants to see you succeed. Some are silently competing with you. Some are projecting their fears onto you. And some are just waiting for you to slip so they can say, I told you so. So why hand them your playbook? Why give away the very thing you've spent quiet hours crafting, thinking through, and preparing? Every move you make should come from clarity, not pressure to announce it. The moment you speak it, you shift the energy from execution to expectation. And that can be dangerous. When people expect you to win, but you haven't even started yet, you start feeling the pressure to perform before the foundation is even set. That kind of pressure kills innovation. It rushes the process. It robs you of the time and focus needed to build something real. Silence, on the other hand, gives you room to breathe. It gives you room to fail privately, to tweak things in peace, to work out the kinks without having an audience watching your every move. And here's the beauty of staying silent about your strategy. It builds internal strength. You start trusting your instincts more. You stop looking for permission. You begin to sharpen your decision making because you're not outsourcing your judgment to everyone else's opinion. Let me give you something practical. If you're planning a major shift, a career change, a new business, a personal transformation, move in the shadows. That doesn't mean hiding. It means working quietly, consistently, intentionally. The world doesn't need to know you're about to shift. It just needs to feel it when it happens. That's how real change works. It doesn't knock. It walks in the room with authority. And people say, where did that come from? And you smile because you know it came from those months, those years of silent planning, of hidden growth. You don't need to post every plan. You don't need to talk about every conversation. You don't have to explain why you're disappearing for a while, or why you're not answering every call, or why you're spending more time reading, building, thinking. You're preparing. That's enough. Because here's the truth. Noise is cheap. Progress is quiet. The loudest person in the room is rarely the one who's winning. The winners are too busy doing the work to talk about it. Keep your next move sacred. Guard it, nurture it, and when the time is right, reveal it not with your words, but with your results. Because results speak a language that no opinion can argue with. There's a weight you carry that no one can see, a silent battle behind your eyes, the kind that doesn't show up in your smile or your speech, but it lives in your thoughts, in your heartbeat, in the quiet moments of your day. And while it may feel natural, even tempting, to share that struggle with just anyone, you must be careful, because not everyone deserves access to your pain. Now, we live in a world that encourages us to be open, to let it all out, to speak our truth. And yes, vulnerability is a strength, but only when shared with the right people, at the right time, for the right reasons. Pain is sacred. Struggle is sacred. These are not conversation pieces. These are soul pieces. And if you hand them to the wrong person, they won't handle them with care. They'll drop them, twist them, or use them against you. Some people don't listen to heal you. They listen to label you. They turn your pain into a punchline, your story into gossip, your wounds into weakness. And before you know it, what you shared in a moment of honesty becomes a weapon in someone else's hands. That's why you've got to choose carefully who you open up to. When you're in pain, you don't need an audience. You need alignment. People who have the emotional depth to sit with you, not fix you. People who can handle your truth without judgment. People who don't just hear your words, but understand your heart. And those people, they're rare. They don't come around every day. That's why your pain should never be offered to the crowd. It should be reserved for the trusted, the mature, the wise. Too often we look for relief in exposure. We think if I just talk about it, I'll feel better. But exposure without discernment is dangerous. Just because it feels good in the moment doesn't mean it serves you in the long run. Pain doesn't always need a platform. It often needs privacy. You have to process your struggle in a place that allows you to heal, not in places that turn your pain into content or casual conversation. And here's the deeper truth. Some parts of your journey aren't meant to be shared until you've made it through them. You don't have to invite people into your storm when they don't have the strength to carry an umbrella, let alone help you walk through the rain. Walk through it first. Grow through it. Learn what it's teaching you. And then when you found the light on the other side, you can tell your story not as a cry for help, but as a beacon of hope. Because when you speak from a scar, you're stronger. But if you speak from an open wound, you're still bleeding. And bleeding in front of those who don't know how to bandage you will only make the wound deeper. Protect your process. Don't let your struggle become public property. You're allowed to be private. You're allowed to keep certain chapters of your story unread until you're ready to release the book. Silence during struggle isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You're not pretending nothing's wrong. You're preserving your strength until you're healed enough to speak with clarity, not desperation. Because when you heal quietly, you return stronger, more centered, more whole. And when you finally speak, when you finally tell the world what you went through, you do it not from a place of brokenness, but from a place of victory. There's something sacred about doing good and keeping it to yourself. In a world driven by likes, shares, and digital applause, it's easy to fall into the trap of needing recognition for every act of kindness. But real kindness, the kind that touches lives, that changes atmospheres, that echoes in eternity, it doesn't demand attention. It doesn't need a camera. It doesn't beg for credit. It simply gives, and it gives quietly. We've been conditioned to think that if we don't show the world our good deeds, they don't count. That if we're not being seen being kind, we're missing the moment. But let me remind you, the purest form of giving is the kind that expects nothing in return, not even acknowledgement. When you give and immediately announce it, the focus shifts from the act to the actor. Suddenly, the spotlight isn't on the person being helped. It's on the person holding the spotlight. Now, this isn't about judgment. It's about intention. You've got to ask yourself, am I doing this because it's right? Or am I doing this because I want to be seen doing what's right? Because the answer to that question will reveal the character of your kindness. See, when you give from the heart, not for reputation, not for attention, not to appear righteous, you tap into a deeper kind of power, A power that uplifts others without needing applause. A power that builds integrity, not image. A power that says, I'm not here to impress. I'm here to bless. Some of the most powerful acts of kindness happen in silence. A bill paid in secret. A meal delivered without a name attached. A shoulder offered to cry on with no expectation of return. These things don't trend on social media, but they shift the atmosphere of a person's life. And maybe that's what matters most. Because what you do in secret shapes who you are in the dark. And who you are when no one's watching is who you really are. We've got to reclaim the beauty of the unseen deed. The dignity of anonymity. The quiet strength of doing the right thing without needing the world to clap for it. Don't confuse impact with visibility. Just because it wasn't broadcast doesn't mean it wasn't powerful. Some of the greatest world changers, some of the most compassionate people you'll ever meet aren't in the spotlight. They're behind the scenes, moving with grace, giving with sincerity, loving without a hashtag. And that's the kind of goodness that lasts. When you do something kind, let the reward be in the doing, not in the recognition. Because when your heart is pure, the joy is internal. The fulfillment isn't in the feedback. It's in knowing that you did something good, something right, something healing for someone who may never repay you. And here's something else to consider. When you make your kindness public, sometimes it shifts how others see the person you helped. Now they're not just a person in need. They're a project, a prop, a reason for someone else to shine. But when you do it privately, you protect their dignity. You give from soul to soul, not spotlight to subject. So make it a practice, a habit, a lifestyle. Let your right hand give and your left hand forget it ever happened. Let your name never be attached to the act, and yet let the act live on in the heart of the person who received it. Because when you serve in silence, you don't just make a difference, you make a mark. There's a quiet kind of power that comes from keeping your financial growth to yourself. Not because you're hiding, not because you're ashamed, but because you understand the weight of money and the misunderstandings that come with it. You see, money is emotional. That you're making more, doing better, finally stepping into overflow, they start forming opinions. Some supportive, some skeptical, and some downright toxic. And not because you've changed, but because money reveals how other people feel about themselves. You mention a new job, a raise, a business that's finally turning a profit, and instead of congratulations, you get silence or subtle sarcasm or fake applause. Why? Because your growth can trigger someone else's sense of inadequacy. Your success, though earned, becomes a mirror to their stagnation. And that mirror makes people uncomfortable. That's why you have to be wise. Financial growth isn't just about earning, it's about managing, multiplying, and protecting what you've built. And one of the best ways to protect your money is by keeping it low key. Because the more people know, the more access they want. And not everyone wants access to bless you. Some wanted to use you. Some wanted to drain you. You ever notice how people treat you differently when they think you've come into some money? Suddenly, you're everyone's emergency contact, everyone's silent investor, everyone's backup plan. But where were they when you were working late, eating cheap, grinding in silence? See, people don't always notice the struggle, just the shine. That's why it's dangerous to overshare your financial progress. When people hear the numbers but haven't seen the discipline, they assume luck. When they see the result but not the routine, they assume privilege. And those assumptions can turn admiration into envy real quick. But you know the truth. You know what it took. You know about the months you had to say no to dinners, the nights you went without sleep, the discipline it took to build your credit, to save when everyone else was spending, to invest when it felt risky, to believe when the numbers looked bleak. That wasn't luck. That was leadership over yourself. And it doesn't need a public announcement. Wealth is most powerful when it's quiet, when it walks into a room with confidence, not a megaphone, when it shows up through your decisions, not your declarations. Let your lifestyle whisper what your mouth doesn't say. Let your peace speak louder than your possessions. Let your generosity be guided by wisdom, not guilt. Because if you don't learn how to manage attention, your money won't be the only thing people come for. They want your time, your energy, your emotional space. They'll sense opportunity not to grow with you, but to benefit from you. So be kind, but cautious. Be generous, but discerning. You don't owe anyone an explanation of your net worth, your next investment, your savings account, or your business profits. Your success doesn't need validation to be valuable. And most of all, never let your financial breakthrough become someone else's battlefield. You've earned where you are. You've grown into it. And now your job is to guard it, not from fear, but from wisdom. Because quiet wealth lasts. Quiet progress multiplies. And quiet power, that's the kind that can't be shaken. You don't owe the world full access to your soul. In a culture obsessed with visibility and validation, the most powerful thing you can do is protect your privacy. Not out of fear, but from wisdom. Because what is sacred must be guarded, and what is still in the process of becoming must be shielded. When you keep certain things to yourself, your dreams, your next move, your struggles, your giving, your financial growth, you're not being secretive. You're being strategic. You're preserving the very energy that fuels your journey. There is incredible strength in silent discipline, in moving without broadcasting, in building in the dark until what you've created is strong enough to stand in the light. Why? Because not everyone clapping is cheering. Not everyone watching is for you. Some are curious. Some are comparing. And some are just waiting to see you fall so they can feel better about staying where they are. So be wise. The world doesn't need to know every detail of your progress to feel the impact of your presence. Let your fruit speak. Let your results answer questions your silence never had to explain. Let your character echo louder than your words. You are not obligated to narrate every step of your evolution. Growth is personal. Healing is personal. And success, that's personal too. Keep sacred what must be sacred. Talk less, move more, share wisely, give privately, and grow in peace. Because when you build from within, you rise with substance, not just noise. And that kind of rise, that's the one no one can kill. That's the one no one saw coming. That's the one no one can stop.